It's Direct Response Podcast. I'm your host, Travis Ketchum, the nerd behind Campaign Refinery, and we got David Cartulano from Wealthy Inbox. What's up, my man?
What's up? I'm the nerd behind Wealthy Inbox. It's okay. You can say it.
Nerds. Yeah, we're just nerds here. It's fine. We geek out about marketing and email marketing and direct response and all that kind of good stuff. Speaking of which, if you're here, it's because you want to learn about, on today's episode, about email infrastructure. Pretty nerdy stuff. But I'll try to keep it as interesting and non-nerdy as possible for those who hear email infrastructure and they, well, as I say, check their IQ and start looking at the back of their brain. Eyes roll, it's looking back. So, David, I know you've worked with a lot of email platforms. I know you're very savvy when it comes to, the authentication protocols and how to track stuff. But email infrastructure, do you touch that very much in your work?
Not really. No, I'm more of a user of the platforms. I understand how to use them, but I think we have an expert in email infrastructure on this podcast right now, and he definitely doesn't sound like me. So Travis, please explain to people that might be like Googling this and looking it up about email infrastructure, what that means and why is it even important?
Sure. So if you're trying to figure out what email infrastructure is, you may be conflating two things, and I want to clarify that first. And then, because that may be where you say, hey, I don't actually need to care about that. So when you think about email infrastructure, people may be conflating that with like email platform, right? So an email platform is the layer that is surfaced to people that are just writing the emails, want to set up the automations, want to generate the content, define who the email goes to, right? That kind of thing. That is not infrastructure. That is your platform. The infrastructure is what the platform is built on. So if you think about the platform, the infrastructure is the legs that are underneath supporting it so that it can do what it needs to do, right? So this is usually things like, MTAs and SMTPs and all these alphabet soup of components and architectures that allow the email to be ingested, to be processed, to be sent, to then handle webhooks, to handle feedback loops from complaints, to handle all of the technical error codes, the temporary deferrals, the permanent deferrals, the timeouts, the error codes about why something couldn't be delivered, why it was being blocked, right? All these things are inside of the infrastructure layer that your email provider, your email platform, they're dealing with all that garbage for you, generally, right? So if you're like, hey, that already sounds like more than I want to handle, you're probably right. You're probably already in the bucket of like, okay, I don't actually want to do email infrastructure. I want to go pick an email platform, which is a totally different conversation. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you're saying, I want to build my own email infrastructure, first of all, who hurt you? Because we've sent over 1 billion emails at this point. And
my gosh.
I knew it would be difficult. I knew it would be expensive. I thought I was, ask me a year or two into it, I thought I was off by a factor of 10. Ask me now, I'm off by a factor of 100. Because email infrastructure is hard, complicated, changes all the time, and the difficulty level goes up by an order of magnitude as your scale goes up, is what I've learned. Okay. So all of these problems that you think are problems in the beginning, and they are, become exponentially more of a problem as your overall volume increases, right? Because there are technologies about how you warehouse this information, how you action on this information, how you deploy strategies on this information, and how you actually configure this to start with. Now, I will also start by saying that there is a reason that even email platforms such as ourselves will take a portion of that infrastructure and sort of outsource it to a major infrastructure provider like a Mailgun, like a SendGrid, like an Amazon SCS, like, any kind of similar service to that, because there are diminishing returns even as an email platform to owning the entire layer cake. Okay. Mm-hmm. Because the amount of margin we can squeeze out for the amount of headache in return does not become worth it. It becomes much better to just write a check, right? Just like it's better for our customers to write a check to us to, build an interface for them, manage their contacts, do all the tagging and all that management. For portions of our business, it makes sense for us to write a check to an even bigger aggregated provider of infrastructure to give us a custom environment for them to handle a lot of the headache and just give us the response so that we can then roll that uphill to the platform and make educated decisions and actions. All right. Yeah. So if I haven't lost you so far, congratulations. You're one of us. You're a nerd. Welcome to the party. Now, all of that being said, the infrastructure at which you choose, whether you're choosing it directly by building it yourself, whether you're choosing it like we are by outsourcing a component of it, or even if you're choosing to abstract it all the way to the email platform, like I said in the beginning, the infrastructure decisions that are made throughout that entire pipeline matter. Now, why do they matter? The infrastructure that you share with other senders has its own inherent reputation components. So we've talked about deliverability in the past, and we know that your domain reputation dictates a lot of how you actually inbox and have deliverability and have success and profitable experiences running email. But what's not talked about as much is basically, I'm going to use an analogy of like buying into a good neighborhood. So having the worst house, like a medium domain reputation in the best neighborhood is going to yield better results than having the best house in the worst neighborhood. So if you're sending from bad IP addresses on, there's basically, signing from DKIMs from a service that does not have a high reputation, and all these indicators that are flashing yellow lights to Google and Yahoo and Microsoft and all these other things that maybe you're coming from the ghetto instead of from a nice neighborhood, then maybe you should be treated more like the ghetto and less like the nice house that you are. So in a perfect world, you want to pair your really great domain reputation with a really nice neighborhood. And that is the best example I can give of email infrastructure. And this is like a long-standing thing. So you will see at times, one email platform has a problem with a certain provider. That is the infrastructure being earmarked by Yahoo or earmarked by Comcast or earmarked by Google as saying, this is, generally speaking, an untrustworthy infrastructure that we get mail from. And so we are going to have a negative bias against their ability to inbox because of that decision, right? So this is what is not well understood.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is why those decisions matter. Now, I think 99.9999999 repeating people should not be building their own infrastructure. Don't set up your own crappy thing on some, ancient Dell from 2009 and decide that you're going to set it up and run it from your house. You will have a bad time. Even we don't decide to buy our own hardware and do that, right? We're working with Mailgun, but we're having them provision a unique custom enterprise solution for us. And because we curate our senders so well and so tightly, that is a trusted neighborhood, right? And so that rolls uphill. So all I'm really saying is pick someone who has a trusted infrastructure, a trusted neighborhood with trusted senders if you want to have a good time. And if you are nerdy enough to build anything of email that feels technically related, you probably want to pick a Mailgun or a SendGrid or an Amazon SCS or, a Postmark app or whatever to underpin a lot of that technology. But I think 95% of people out there should just pick a great email platform that curates a lot of this for them. So Thanks for coming to my TED Talk, David. Do you have any questions?
No, that was great. If you didn't understand anything, don't email me and just watch the thing again.
Yeah, and I think the big takeaway I want most people to come away from this from is pick an email platform that has a reputation of doing things right, which means cutting off bad senders, having great data integrity policies to make sure that their list is clean, and verify that through your own experiences. And if you're not getting that, then maybe consider getting an interface software that allows you to then plug in your own mail. Like the second best thing, in my opinion, is plugging your own Mailgun, your own SendGrid, whatever. So you have some control, and then you can try to work with those infrastructure providers. Now, you're often not going to get the same eked out level performance as someone like us or another high performing email service provider, because we have really deep relationships with Mailgun that you're just not going to be able to get as an individual sender. And we have dedicated staff on their team that are like proactively reaching out to their reps that they know at Comcast, at Yahoo, whatever, to get things ironed out and smooth out. That's a level of access you just can't get unless you're over a certain size. But if you're not getting what you need and someone like us isn't a fit for whatever reason, find an interface, plug in a Mailgun, plug in a SendGrid, do things right, and try to build your own neighborhood. Cool. All right. Now, I know I talked a long time. So, David, if you have anything else to add, go ahead and add it. But if not, we can go ahead and wrap this bad boy up. And hopefully most people said, cool, tech bad, buy it off the shelf. Good.
That's really it. Nope, that's fantastic, Travis.
Cool. All right. Well, if you want to learn more about email infrastructure, and like I said, I didn't want to get I know I got geeky, but it could have gotten a lot worse. If you want to read about that instead of, listening to paint dry, go ahead and check out the blog post linked down below. If you want to buy an email service provider that does have good data integrity policies, does force the neighborhood to be nice, that is kind of our hallmark. So check out Campaign Refinery down below. And David, how can they get in touch with you to learn more about what you're up to?
Yeah, you can go to wealthyinbox.news, and that's where you learn about the way that I'm growing and scaling a newsletter and other digital assets to roll it up and sell it for a lot of money. And I will be using Campaign Refinery to do so. So there you go.
Because you pick infrastructure that is trusted and works.
Yep. Because the other stuff I'm doing right now, it just ain't.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll talk to you guys soon.